Here's the 4 strategies you can use to scale from 6 to 7 figures. So if you're a business owner or scaling a business, this is one you can't afford to miss, and there's some stuff here that I've never shared publicly before, so hang with me. Let's go. So here's 4 strategies that took me from 6 figures a year to multiple 7 figures per year. So hang with me until the end because number 4 might just be the most important. Let's dive in. Alright, starting at the top. Automated webinars. You know, most people do not have a process for acquiring customers that is evergreen, predictable, and therefore scalable. At the end of the day, predictability creates scalability. Because when I have a process for acquiring customers that allows me to predict with some form of accuracy the rate at which we're going to bring on customers on a daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, or annual basis, and better yet, a process where I can control that rate of growth. I'm going to talk about how to control it in tip number 2. When I can control that rate of growth, then we have more scalability, because then we know at what rate, at what speed we need to hire people, create systems, and ultimately build the infrastructure that needs to be in place in order to support all of that customer acquisition. Now, most businesses, when they're utilizing social media and free strategies and posting content and blogging and doing all the sorts of stuff that people talk about online, the simple fact, and they don't have that predictability, and therefore they lack the ability to scale. Now, automated webinars, for those who might not know, is basically just an online presentation where someone can schedule a date and time to watch the presentation, and that presentation explains my business, products and service, how we serve our customers, and how we stack up against their competitors in the space. In other words, it's evergreen. On any given day, people can choose to become informed about how my business can serve them without having to be on the phone with somebody on my team, without having to schedule a meeting and these sorts of things. Therefore, it doesn't have to be just a webinar. This could be a video that people watch, a video sales letter, it could be a piece of audio. It could be a podcast, it could be anything that people can consume. But when they consume the material, they convert to customers at a predictable rate. That predictability is critical for scalability. Alright. Number 2 is ads. You see, once we had a presentation that had been tested and measured as an example in our first iteration, we figured out that 12 of people who registered for that presentation would turn into a customer. So now we have predictability. Now, if we want to control that rate of growth and add another level of predictability, well then we add-on advertisements became an opportunity for us to deliver a targeted message in front of the people that were most likely to convert into a customer for our product or service, and we would predict that based on their online behavior or their particular interests on the internet. By using ads, we're now able to manually control how many people are registering for that presentation on a daily basis. Now, I know that if you know if it converts at 12, then think about this. If I want to generate 12 customers a day, then I know that I need to get 100 registrants a day. And if I'm paying $5 in ads on average per registrant, then I know that I need to spend $500 a day on ads in order to kind of manually engineer the average of acquiring 12 customers a day. So now there's so much more predictability available in the business, because we know exactly what activity we need to generate in order to hit our top line goal of acquiring 12 customers a day. Then I know that I need to get 100 registrants a day, and if I'm paying $5 in ads on average per registrant, then I know that I need to spend $500 a day on ads in order to kind of manually engineer the average of acquiring 12 customers a day. So now there's so much more predictability available in the business, because we know exactly what activity we need to generate in order to hit our top line goal of acquiring 12 customers a day in this simplified example. Alright? So number 3 that I'm about to cover is a pretty advanced strategy. However, it's also the way in which we pour the fuel on the fire and start to create massive exponential growth and squeeze our competitors out of the marketplace. And this is something that I call negative acquisition. More specifically, negative customer acquisition. In other words, we're willing to go into debt or go upside down in order to acquire a customer. Let me explain what I mean. Right earlier, we talked about having a presentation that converts a predictable rate. Our presentation sold a 100 product on the front. Eventually, we were willing to spend $500 in advertising to generate a 100 customer. In other words, we're spending $500 in order to get one person to spend 100 with us. We're going in the whole 400. Well, why would we be willing to do such a thing? Well, we knew that once they bought and then they plugged into like our back-end processes, then we knew that on average we were going to earn about $1,000 to $1,500 per person on any given month inside of 90 days. So by having a back-end process that was dialed in and measured, we knew that we could spend $500 getting somebody to spend just $100 and become a customer. So by having a back-end process that was dialed in and measured, we knew that we could spend $500 getting somebody to spend just $100 and become a customer. But once they came through our back-end sequence on average, each one of those people would be worth $1,000 to $1,500, giving us a return on ad spend of 2 or 3 times what we originally spent. Now the reason that I say that this is dangerous is because there has to then be a float on this front end. That means the business has to be able to manage its finances, such that it can go upside down on its marketing and be acquiring customers at a loss and be able to float that loss for potentially up to 90 days until that money comes back in and can make the company flush again. So this does become a bit of a balancing act, but the reason that this works so effectively is plainly put the business that is going to win the game in its marketplace, or in its niche or its industry, is the business that can afford to pay the most to acquire a customer. Let me say that again, the business that can pay the most to acquire a customer is going to dominate its industry. Let's look at Amazon as an example of a monstrosity of this. Think about Amazon. For its first 10 to 12 years, they were upside down completely on customer acquisition. In other words, they were building a business at a loss year over year over year. But Jeff Bezos was willing to go out there and talk to investors and pitch the big picture, vision of what Amazon was going to become, and just kept saying, hey, invest in this company. We're going to be eventually the everything store. We're going to have a credit card on file from every household across the globe potentially one day, and investors kept investing in that company even though it was technically negative or upside down for the first 10 or 12 years. However, once they started to turn that around, eventually they came back out of that hole and went on to become one of the richest companies in the world. But they're willing to be upside down on their customer acquisition for over a decade. In other words, the longer the runway, the bigger the aircraft, the deeper you're willing to go to the hole in order for customer acquisition, the more that you force your competitors out of your market who aren't willing to go that deep in the hole, and the ability to go deep in the hole or go upside down on customer acquisitions based on your ability to have a predictable back-end process that monetizes all of those customers that you brought through the front door. All right? And finally, number 4 is investing in leaders. Now this is something I've talked about in other videos that I wish that I had done sooner, but a key component of going from 6 to 7 figures was getting the right leadership team into our company. In other words, bringing on the people who had already solved the problems that we were trying to solve. When I initially began scaling, I started by hiring all the people on the front lines, the frontline workers, right, the customer support reps, the sales people, the developers that were building outcome of the software that we were using. And then I had to train each one of those people on how to do their jobs. Once I got maxed out on my bandwidth, then I hired their managers. Once I got maxed out on their bandwidth, then I hired their directors. That's a bottom-up approach. However, things start to radically change really quickly when we flip that on its head, and now we start to just hire the leaders who already had proof of past performance, not promise of future potential, which is what most people hire for as early-stage entrepreneurs. They hire their friends or their cousins or people that they know they might be a good fit for this job, that's promise of future potential, which is yet unactualized. Instead, the business grew rapidly once we started hiring based on proof of past performance. In other words, we brought on operators and directors of sales and directors of marketing who had experience doing the thing that we were trying to do. They came then with all of the systems and processes that were needed, the management tools, and many times even the team members or frontline workers that were going to be out there on the front lines actually doing the work. So this became a major shortcut in going from 6 to 7 figures. With that said, I hope you got tons of value out of this video. There's some advanced strategies and some key metrics that I've never shared before publicly, and in case we haven't met before. My name is Digital Tad here. I'm an entrepreneur that went from working on a shop for barely over minimum wage to now building multiple 6-figure businesses, totaling over 5 million in sales over the last few years. And I'm not saying that to brag or boast. I'm saying it so that you know that everything that I'm sharing on my channel comes from real-world experience of what's helped me create those results. And I share them here in hopes that they help you create similar results and save some time and energy in your pursuit along the way. With that said, if you like this content, make sure you hit subscribe, hit that little bell notification so you get notified every time I drop more content like this, which I'm dropping content like this on a weekly basis. So subscribe. Also visit my link on the description. Hit that bell notification and look forward to seeing you in the future training. My friend, take care.